Andrew in Thailand, pronouns are he, him. Welcome, Andrew. And you think it's worthwhile to hold Christian belief even if it doesn't comport to reality. And so pragmatic Christianity. This is an interesting idea. So welcome, Andrew. Please tell us about your idea.
Yeah, hello. Yes. So I'm just trying to provide a new perspective of being religious, because personally for me, why I became Christian is because of the positive difference that it makes in my life. So this is not to convince anyone else if they think that religion does not provide any positive benefit to them. Then so for me, it does help my mental health a lot. It made me less suicidal, right? It allows me to have a sense of belonging, right? And really teach me how to socially interact, and it really improves my overall well-being. So even though I'm not convinced of the fact that Christianity comports with reality, I think it is justified and truth in a sense of the pragmatic theory of truth.
Okay, so the pragmatic theory model of truth means that it does comport with reality. So you're simultaneously saying that you should do it even if it doesn't comport reality, but you say that it does comport with reality.
As in the benefits comports with reality, but the existence of Jesus, I don't believe in that.
Okay, so the benefits, and you listed that it helps your mental health, it gives you a sense of belonging and improves your well-being. Wouldn't belief in any other system provide those same sorts of benefits? That a system that builds you a community and gives you structure?
Yeah, but Christianity for me is just the most convenient, and it is just the best, right? For me so far in my life.
So I'm with you in the sense that you get benefits from being a part of a group, and you would get benefits from being a part of another group. Here's the problem. The group that you're a part of has beliefs that are incredibly problematic, like with regard to LGBTQ rights, with regard to men and women being equal. And so when you say you're a Christian, how do you figure out what parts of the Bible you're going to pay attention to?
Oh, so for me, yeah, because I really see it as metaphorical and allegorical. So I just take the parts that really helps me understand life. And of course, if it talks about slavery and anti-LGBTQ, I wouldn't support it, obviously. And I would just go with the parts that will actually help me live my life, because that's the reason why I believed in Christianity. Right.
So what parts are essential to you living your life? Because I'll tell you right now, Andrew, if you say, I'm only going to keep the good parts of Christianity, the ones that are convenient and that I agree with, I don't think there's a Christian organization on the planet that's going to say you're a real Christian if you just believe it metaphorically. So what is it that you believe that you think helps you?
As in, it doesn't matter whether they recognize me as a Christian. I mean, to me, being a Christian is just about following the church and its practices. Right? I mean, of course, people can dispute about that, and because there are also precisely because there are so many denominations. So either way, people would call you as a fake Christian. So in my own idea of being a Christian, this is a Christian, and I have many friends that are pragmatic Christians like me. And I'm not just choosing the parts that, yeah, you're right in the sense that I choose the parts that I agree with, but that's only because it ties in with my philosophy of being pragmatic. So it does help me. Yeah.
I guess Dan's going to have questions, and I want to make sure Dan's got questions. Yeah. At some point, I want to get to what it is that you actually believe, because I'm not convinced that you believe anything that is necessarily tied to Christianity, and instead just adopted good ideas that happen to be consistent with some version of Christianity.
Yeah. So this is my question then, Andrew. What's the difference between me and you, or me and Matt, in the sense that you're a Christian and we're not? Because it sounds like we might agree on a lot of ideas. So why would you call yourself a Christian, and why would I not call myself a Christian? What do you think is the difference there?
Yeah, that's I kind of touched on that just now when I said that my idea of being a Christian is about following its practices and its rituals, right? For example, like going to church, going through certain holidays like the Eucharist. You go into church and you dip the bread into the alcohol, right? And then you bond together and you pray together, right? In the name of Jesus Christ. So there is this bond that is connected to Christianity. So I'm basically doing everything that a Christian does, right? Except maybe for most Christians, maybe they really believe in Jesus Christ. While I don't. I only believe in the pragmatic benefits of it.
I think this speaks to the greatest advantages organized religion has had in the history of its existence, which is it does give people a sense of community and a sense of belonging, and in many cases, a sense of life purpose. When my grandmother passed away recently, so I went to the church for her funeral service, and most of the people that were there to see her were people in her church group, and they had this ceremony, and there was this lunch afterwards, and all of these people who knew her in her life, who knew her almost exclusively through the church, brought all this food and said very kind things about my grandmother. And so I know she was surrounded by, at least ostensibly, really nice people, and who were willing to do these kind things. So that was really nice to say. But something the pastor said during the funeral service was that the most important thing about my grandmother was that she was a Christian, because that meant that she was in heaven and that everyone else could see her when she goes to heaven. And to me, that reminded me that, yes, do Christians have, all of these great spaces, and are these wonderful people in there? Absolutely. But you almost can't unmix that ideology there. I think you're always going to find yourself amongst people who are going to think differently about you, in these issues. And that has a weakness to, that belief system, right? I would rather find myself amongst a group of people that I can relate to in more areas of my life than that, because I could go to church and I could go through the motions and I could say, yeah, I want to be a good person because X, Y, and Z, but ultimately I don't find that inspiration through Christianity anymore because I've seen how much harm the history of that ideology has done. So it's really complicated for me to hear this from you, Andrew, because I think you recognize that there's atrocities that the history of this religion has committed, and or probably will continue to commit as long as it exists. So if you recognize that, and if you recognize that, that there's always going to be people that take Christianity that way, I really struggle with the idea of why call yourself a Christian at all, especially if you can find inspiration from other group, places. And I understand it's probably a community thing for you, but that certainly gives me pause to think about,
So we kind of slid a little bit there. Andrew, Here's the thing. You can say you're a Christian, and let's say I also said I'm a Christian. So Andrew has now said he's a Christian, and I say I'm a Christian. Yeah. What's the difference between you and me right now, Andrew? I don't believe in God. You don't believe in a God. What do you believe that makes you a Christian that I don't believe?
I mean, it depends. If you are using my way of using of how I define the word Christian, then of course you are not really believing in God. Then we'll be the same, right? But except that you are not going through the rituals and practices that I'm going through.
I don't care, so, Andrew. What I'm asking is, what is it? All right, you say you're a Christian, and now I'm going to say I'm a Christian. How do we tell which of us is correct? Because under your definition of Christian, I don't see how I'm not a Christian. So what is it that you believe that I don't believe?
What is it? I believe in going through the certain practices and rituals associated with Christianity, while you don't.
Why?
Right?
Why do you believe in going through practices and rituals?
As I already said, because it gives me this sense of unity with my surroundings and the sense of belonging, right, with the world. And
so what you're saying is you don't care if something's true, you just care if it's practical, if it makes you feel good.
I believe pragmatic theory of truth does not require correspondence with reality. So
Oh, so you don't care whether or not
understand.
so you have a definition of truth that means it doesn't matter if it maps to reality. It's only so here's the thing, Andrew. I appreciate you sharing this, but I do not respect or agree with your definition of truth. I do not respect or agree with your definition of Christianity. I don't think pretty much any Christian on the planet would say that you can be an atheist who's a Christian and be a real Christian. I think that what you're doing is floundering around saying, hey, these practices make me feel like I'm a part of something, so I don't care if A, it doesn't point to anything real, and B, I am by implication supporting corrupt criminal organizations that are grossly immoral and not real. Well, I can't do that. So I have problems with your decision to not care enough about the truth.
I think there are Christians who agree with me because they are cultural Christians, right? I mean, you have heard of that term, but I mean, I'm a cultural Christian.
Yes, but I don't give a fuck about any of them. They're a monumental waste of time. They're LARPing. They're live action role playing. They're pretending like Christianity is true because that gets them the comfort of community without having to stand by their fucking principles. I have zero respect for that disregard for truth.
Also, just to address when you say that, by implication, I'm, somehow causing harm, right? That's like what ObjectivelyDan said, right? I'm causing harm, or I'm complicit, right, in other Christians, right, in causing harms to other groups of people. I think for any belief system, you can take it to the extreme, right, and then you can cause harm from there.
I think this is a dishonest line of argument that is an attempt to avoid taking responsibility. Of course, you can take anything to the extreme. You can take pacifism to the extreme. That's not what we're talking about. Now you're just making excuses.
I mean, for many Christians, right? I mean, definitely yes. I would say that yes, if they take the book literally, right? Then they will go against certain groups, right, and discriminate against certain groups. But I think more and more Christianity is in line with our modern morality.
No, it's not. Christianity is absolutely not in line. Absolutely. That's fucking bullshit. Now you're just making shit up, Andrew, because Christianity, by and large, both in the largest denominations, Christianity in every sense other than the specialized sense where you've made up your own version of Christianity, Christianity in every recognized sense is not in line with our modern sensibilities.
Yeah. So, for example, Andrew, you talked about you seem to be in alliance with the LGBT community, but if you recognize, like, the only reason why, at least in the United States, why we have the progress that we have is directly the opposite in line of what the wishes of what a lot of Christians in this country would have wanted, right? Like, there's Christians who have actively fought against the rights that we currently have now, and the only reason it's taken as long as it have is because of the lobbying that's been done by Christian organizations and the ideology that's been spewed about gay people and trans people, and there's been a direct line against this. Obviously, there's a minority of opinion within the Christian community, but Christians also make up over 1 billion people on the planet. So of course there's going to be people that view differently. But by and large, historically, as a movement, Christianity has been against many of the progressive ideas of morality that we have and enjoy today. Including secularism, by the way, which is, also this idea that you can kind of come up with your own Christianity in and of itself and have it not affect how you feel the state should act. Like there's benefits that come with living in the modern world that we don't realize. There is a trail of progress that has come in line, in part because we've gone against what Christians have said for long periods of time. So, we could play this game and say, hey, I'm a Christian because I think I'm a good person. Well, I mean, you could say, oh yeah, I'm a Scientologist, I just don't believe in all the Z-News stuff. I mean, it's equally as meaningless to me, right? Because it's like, why even associate yourself with this thing if you have all these ideas that don't even match up with, the text or, the origins of the religion itself? It's very confusing for myself.
Yeah.
But
it's a very convenient way of not having to adopt the label that is true, which is that you're an atheist.
I mean, sure, but I mean there are terms that describe me more accurately, like a cultural and pragmatic Christian. But just what Matt said. I mean,
That's the load of
Dan
bullshit.
said.
No, Andrew, we've talked about it. I gave you your opportunity. It's a load of bullshit. You might as well be saying, I'm a cultural crip. I don't stand for anything that gang mentality supports, but at least I can be in a gang and claim I'm in a gang and be friends with people in a gang and get the benefits of a cultural thing. I don't really support their ideology. And if they want to say I'm not a real crip, well, then cool. I'm not a real crip, but I'm going to wear the colors. Well, fuck that. I'm not wearing the colors, and I'm not making excuses for shit that's not true. And I'm not going to pretend to believe something culturally just because it's convenient, and I won't lose friends for acknowledging that I actually don't believe in a God. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, but I think most importantly for me is that it really reduces like suicidal ideation for me, and it reduces my mental health problems. I mean, of course, I can see where you're coming from, and if you want me to, if I really leave Christianity, then my mental health problem comes back up.
Yes,
if this is
that's more reflective.
The solution to mental health problems is mental health care, not religion, especially not a religion that is opposed to mental health treatment that you just twisted around to do your thing. I'm glad that you are helpful, that you are helping yourself. I'm glad that you found something that makes you not suicidal, etc. But I wish you would get some real mental health help so that you wouldn't have to sit here and make excuses for using the name and label of an abomination to morality and sensibility.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm also sympathetic to that. I'm glad that you believe the community you're in is giving you the mental health that you need. But I think that's more of a reflection of a systemic issue that we don't have, that the institutions who have historically helped people out with a lot of their mental issues were churches. And I think that is a problem. I don't think that that's a very reliable way of giving people the best health and sense of community that they need as well. It's because we do, in many places of the world, there is a lack of secular care in the sense of mental health that can be provided for folks, right? There's not a lot of organizations some folks can join besides their local church that can give them like a sense of community and stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely sympathetic to that, but I don't see it as, again, an excuse to say, oh, well, we have to keep supporting the church because it helps me in this. I would rather say, no, we should come up with better solutions that can replace that can be more accessible to everybody. Because, I'm not going to get anything out of going to church. I know Matt isn't. So, there's a lot of us that would rather have something else.
Sure, but at least for now, it is justified and pragmatic for me to go on, right? Because I've seen secular mental health therapists, psychologists, many of them, and they all told me that if going to church works for you and is really helping you, then then you should continue going to church and continue practicing Christianity, right? So
they can be replaced though. It doesn't have to be under the guise of a Christian church, right? Like I am 100% positive, 100% sure that there are terrorist cells in the world right now who have a lot of sense of community in their, terrorist organizations, who feel that they have a sense of purpose. I would not say that they should continue to be terrorists because they find, good health and well-being from being a part of that organization, right? And I'm not calling you a terrorist here. My example is more to the point that, being part of a group is like as a mental health thing, usually pretty good, but not all groups are equal. You have to figure out which groups are going to be best for the world at large, right?
Yeah. And maybe in America it's really that bad because I'm not in America, but at least in my country and in my community, it is pretty good. And this is why I support it. And because there are many people who share the same view as me and support me as a Christian. So I think in my community, it isn't that bad as you guys like to point it out. So for me, it seems very logical and justified, right, and pragmatic for me to continue practicing Christianity and support Christianity in my community.
Andrew,
right?
For every person that you found that they've gotten great benefits from being a part of the church, I can name you 10 for people who have been harmed by their local communities and who have been scarred because of the things that they've heard and because of the way that they've been treated. So again, I'm glad you found something that works for you, but I hope it's a temporary thing. I hope you can realize that maybe there's a, you know, a greater part of the world that you can be sympathetic to and help be a part of, because I don't think Christianity is it. I think Christianity, you're going to end up hitting these roadblocks every single time, not just with people like us, but with other Christians who are just going to tell you that you're not a real Christian anyway. You know, so in my perspective, I say, why bother? Why not just try to figure out what's true and go with that, and maybe try to find organized communities based around that, if you can, or start it yourself. Why support institutions that historically have always contributed to harm and will continue to, as long as I'm around? I know for a fact. But anyway, I think we probably should move on to another call here. But thanks again for your time, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
So while we put out the call for people to, if you believe in a God, or you believe in something supernatural, or you believe in, you know, some particular religion, to call in and actually defend it, I'm not interested ever in people calling in to say, here's what I believe. I can't prove it. I don't think it ties to reality. I don't have a definition of truth that comports to reality at all. I just believe this because it comforts me. Call somebody else. That's not what my time's for.
It's interesting. I think Andrew's perspective on Christianity is going to become the norm, at least in the United States, for Christians. I think younger Christians and people who are growing up, I think that's going to be their perspective on Christianity. It's less about the hard line ideological points and more just the sense of community that it brings, and, you know, these other kind of social benefits, pro-social benefits that come with it. So it's very interesting.
I think that's certainly going to become far more normal. And certainly it's less harmful. The problem is that it is the liberal Christians that are providing cover for the moderates and the fundamentalists, because they all have to point to the same book. And when Andrew says, oh, I only take the things out of the book that I like. So basically he does, you know, I don't believe it was inspired by God or anything else. So what the fuck is in the book that you like? Because quite frankly, I don't find anything in that book that I like that can't be attained on its own. It's not in any way tied to Christianity. But